I really like the quick slot thing we have on the HUD, but I want to add some things to it. We already have the usual stuff in there, right? Like potion use and all that shit. I was thinking, what if your hunter was at a restaurant and wanted to order steak? How would the player quickly tell the waiter how they wanted their steak done? I think that's a quick slot thing. And when you want the check, I like to quickly decide how much to tip. Is it 10%, 20%, 25%? Are we compensating for unfair wages? You never know these days. And will the player use a credit card or meme coins? You gotta have options, right? That's great. Love it. For everything else I think of, I want you to just add it as text in the menus. That tested really well with the Wheel of Time fans. Yep. Great. Love it. Ship it.
Monster Hunter Wilds is the most fun I've had in terms of gameplay and co-op in a very long time, but it also comes with the most horrendous UX I've seen in also a very, very long time. Now, if you are a Monster Hunter veteran, you might not be feeling the sting of this UX, but please watch this video from the eyes of a new player. A new player in 2025 that is used to modern UX. We're gonna go over the whys and the hows that this UI is so bad and try to redesign a few things to make it better, because that's what I do with this channel. I'm Lucas Olivieri, the creative director at Loreworx, a gaming startup, and I redesign interfaces in hopes that a developer might change a thing or two in the future. They won't, because they've been set in their ways for 20 years, but let's do it anyway. This UX is torture, and it starts right here in like the start screen with 4 different options: recommended lobby, lobby search, private lobby, online single player, which to me is already like an oxymoron. Usually I'm a single player guy, I click online single player, right? Start the game without join. Why are you asking me this? I clicked online single player. I don't want a lobby.
It's fun how you have 4 options, 3 of them have the lobby word in it.
Yeah,
and the only
you
one
click the one that's not lobby, and then they go, are you sure you don't want to join a lobby? You're not going to join a lobby.
Are you sure about that?
Seriously, this is just a tiny example of how unreal this UX is. I can imagine so many gamers used to modern AAA UX getting frustrated without knowing exactly why. So here's an analogy I came up with to describe the Monster Hunter Wilds UX. Let's say you decorate your house for Christmas every year, but you've been doing it for 20 years now and you've used the same Christmas lights, but they started getting tangled. They're Christmas lights, so you said f*** it, and you never untangled them. You put them up, then you take them down in January and you shove them in the same old box. You use the same lights each year because you think they look pretty and they don't make it like this anymore. You just add more Christmas decorations and you call it a day. For 20 years. You started in 2004, but now it's December 2024 and your Christmas lights have turned into a ball that is so f***ed your cats are afraid of it. But your house looks nice because you bought a cool reindeer decoration on Prime Day. That's this game's interface. It's 20 years and more than 20 titles worth of Christmas lights getting tangled, but the gameplay is awesome, so your neighbors still think your house looks nice. So let's go over the reasons why this UX sucks. Familiarity plays an enormous role in user experience. When you get your hands on a new smartphone and you believe you can use it, you pinch to zoom without any tutorial telling you how to zoom. That's intuitiveness. But intuitiveness is formed by years and years of market tendencies. A long, long time ago in this galaxy, player movement in PC games was done with the arrow keys. Now, if you press WASD and your player doesn't move, you think your keyboard is broken. If you press R on the keyboard in a first-person shooter and your character doesn't reload, you'll want to press charges against the developers. Following these norms is good UX, and going against the grain isn't revolutionary, it's just jarring. When I press escape on the keyboard or start on the controller, I expect to see a standard, tried and true pause screen that usually looks pretty different from all other game screens. What I don't expect to see is a one screen to rule them all approach, with 6 sections and 45 text links. Seriously, has anyone in the dev team ever said no to any idea since 2004? Do you see what I mean when I say this is untangling Christmas lights? But let's make it even more interesting. Let's give every single thing ever a sub menu with even more crap inside. Now you'll get electrocuted as you're untangling this mess. And honestly, I think the designers know this UI is a hornet's nest because they try to make our lives a little bit easier with band-aid solutions like adding a terribly implemented Recents tab, a recently updated tab, and a Favorites tab. And you can access these features in the amazing submenu that shows up as a keybind on the bottom of every freaking page. You know, most games would use the empty space on the bottom bar to show these things. But here, if you don't go pressing R to open this thing on everything you hover, you might not ever find these little features. It's not just monsters you hunt. So, familiarity here is bad. What else is bad? The presentation. There's no compartmentalization. I think I said it right. Separation of church and state, you know? In other words, things look the same. And that makes navigating these menus as pleasant as your average dentist's appointment. The hierarchy of the elements on the screen is not well defined. Think of this screen as a list with 2 different levels. The top level is the section titles, and the bottom level, the links inside each of them. The top level should be more important. But if you look at the left side of the screen, what really grabs your attention is the wall of text. The one thing that's supposed to help with navigation is getting subconsciously ignored by the player. Why? Because when we open the menu, we usually know what we want. When I press escape, I'm looking for save game, or load game, or exit game. But Wilds presents me with the last section that I had opened, and a wall of text. I then naturally proceed to play word hunt, skimming over each section's list, trying to spot the word save. Little do I know, it's all the way to the right. Now, I could have pressed Q to get there faster, but because our little monkey brains are wired to go from left to right, I press E 5 times instead. And just like that, what could have been a single button press becomes a side quest with a mini boss. A Recents tab that has 0 differentiation from the others, making it blend right in with a list of 7 links that change every time you open this screen. It's such a fun little way of confusing us. At this point, you might be thinking this is nitpicky as fuck, especially if you're a Monster Hunter fan. But let me be as unbiased as I possibly can. This game is a UX designer's nightmare, and you can still love it while hating it. I know I do. Anyway, these little navigation buttons are not doing a good enough job of telling us what each section here is. And the barely noticeable button text on the top left corner of the bar doesn't make things any better. Most modern games use text headers in this situation as they're much easier to identify. To exemplify this, here's a UI that you're probably used to seeing. This is Microsoft Word, but I replaced the headers on the top bar with little icons. Now imagine navigating Word with a top bar like this. Now back to normal and balance to the force. Now let's try it with other games. Here's Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 with the Monster Hunter navigation. And without. Here's Cyberpunk. Icons? No icons. Okay, so I'm not gonna do a complete redesign of these menus because that would take a long freaking time and a lot of zenny. Not to mention antidepressants. but I will experiment with tweaking this presentation a little bit. I'm going to show you a couple of options. The first option is essentially vanilla plus. If I gave you a list of screens, items and equipment, missions and quests, info, communication, recently viewed, and system, and I told you to form two groups, you'd probably put recently viewed and system in one and the rest in the other. Hell, you could give those two their own group and end up with three. They're just different. And the UI needs to tell you somehow that they're different. Which is why I reordered the icons and added dividers. Now the Recents tab is on the far left, System on the far right, and everything else is in between. Sorry, I didn't mean to get political. I increased the header font a bit because it was tiny, and I added a preview of the interesting things that you can do with the submenu to the bottom bar. And in my mind, if you press Escape or Start, you land on the System tab. Period. If you press H or the gamepad equivalent, you land on a Character tab, like Items and Equipment. You can still have this Sauron menu screen approach, but the keybinds would add familiarity to using it. And if you add the favorites and recently updated tabs, you'd end up with something like this. I'd even add a keybind and button press to land on the favorites tab, and I'd make it very easy to reach. For the second option, I changed the position of the header text to be center aligned and on top of the selected icon, because when you're closer to the right side of this bar, the left aligned text is too far to help you. I also added a search feature and put the keybind in the bottom bar. This game has so much freaking stuff that search is the one band-aid UX feature that I think they should add. You press Y, start typing and see results as you type so you don't have to manually hit enter like any decent modern search feature these days. The game would have to use a tag system for this to be any good. That way you'd search for multiplayer, for instance, and stuff like Link Party would still show up and not just the stuff that's named multiplayer. But if I was designing this UI from scratch, I'd go with the text approach that I showed before, and maybe try to fit these icons in. It takes up a lot of space, especially with localization. That's why games use the entire length of the screen with this approach. But there isn't enough real estate in this original design to make this work, so it wouldn't be ideal. Hey, if you like this kind of nerdy game design video, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. You'll motivate us to make future videos like this one and help us make our own game. And we'll be forever grateful. Oh, one thing that I fucking love about this game. Oh, kudos to Capcom. And they've been doing this forever, but I love it. It's so immersive. There are no health bars. And this would be a problem if the enemies in the game were like your typical RPG game enemies where they are fine until they go from 1 HP to 0. You know, I can run a fucking marathon. I could do a goddamn like biathlon with 1 HP and then it goes from 0 and the thing just drops dead. This game does the opposite of this so well, where you are seeing the monsters get damaged and they lose their tails and they, you know, like you break their fucking limb or something, they get damaged and damaged and damaged over time and they start limping. It's so cool that they do it like that without a health bar. So Fernando, this game, the voice acting in this game is decent. However, we talked about this previously in our Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 video, when there is a feeling that the actors are ping-ponging. So a line is being said, and you go, and then, what are you doing today? And then Fernando takes 2 seconds to go, well, I'm calling my mother, and then I'm going to dance lessons.
Help! Zato's in trouble!
What's wrong?
We were attacked by a horde of sand leviathans. Zato stayed behind to lure them away.
It must be the monsters we saw on the sand ship.
You know, it goes like that, boop, 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 boop. The lines are delivered well, but the ping-ponging in this game is horrific. So much so that in cutscenes where a single character has more than one line, you feel the feeling of ping-pong from Fernando going, I'm calling my mother, and then 2 seconds later, without the camera going anywhere else, he goes, and then I'm going to dance lessons.
The Balahara. I'll take these two back to the village. You hurry to the oasis.
on it.
You see that? The timing is horrific in the dialogue, even with the same character. The other thing that I hate is, and it's only because it's a $70 game, full price. The game is not fully voice acted. It is in the cutscenes, yes. But when you go talk to somebody in this screen, okay, like, she did not say that. She did not say, let's get to work. She is voice acted in the fucking cutscenes.
Why not 2 more lines?
Seriously, Nintendo is like, I feel like is the only freaking company that gets away with this, but apparently not, because it's a $70 game, and this happens here too. That said, perfection with the subtitles. I always talk about subtitles in games because some games go, let's reinvent how to show subtitles. No, this is exactly how you show subtitles. Perfection. Now let's move on to other stuff in the game, right? So let's look at the one of my favorite screens. The Forge Armor screen. Where do I begin? Talk about a screen that is resistant to change. This screen has changed once in 20 years, but the design philosophy has always been consistent. It's dump as much information as possible. In the early Monster Hunter games, Capcom simply didn't have the resolution, the screen space. They gave us a much simpler looking screen. But as soon as they got the space, they started cluttering this screen with information and armor icons. It's yet another UX nightmare. And once again, to alleviate the UX problem, we get a sorter and a filter, which do help because you don't have to reset them after closing the screen. So, good stuff there. Here's the thing. In my mind, I really wish this screen was less cluttered, but once again, the issues here run so deep that a total redesign would probably involve altering the design of the game itself. For example, I would love to get rid of the second row of armor icons on each set. I hate it with fucking passion. But it's here because the game has a really weird armor crafting system. Each set has 2 variations. They're entirely cosmetic, but you have to forge the second piece if you ever want to switch. And then after completing the main quest, you unlock high rank armor and get access to actual transmog. It's a weird system, and I can't help thinking it ends up complicating screens like this one. It feels like the mini transmog before you unlock the big transmog. And that's why I really don't like this second row of icons. But getting rid of it in a way that feels intuitive to players would probably change the design of the Forge system. They could get rid of the extra row and simply add a step when you're forging the armor piece. You'd first decide what you want to forge, and then you'd pick the variant or vice versa. But that adds a step, and it doesn't play well with what I really wanted to change. These damn icons. I apologize to Monster Hunter fans, but these icons suck. They're old, they look very samey in the menus, and they plaster the armor and weapon screens and add absolutely nothing because they get repeated over and over and over. Capcom has used the same freaking icons since the first Monster Hunter. It's been 20 years. It's time to actually have equipment icons. You know, like the monster icons that look fucking awesome. Why can't the equipment get some love? So I thought I'd create armor icons that actually look like their armor pieces to give some utility to these damn things and make the screen look a little more interesting. I used the generic armor icons that the game already uses, and I tried to maintain the art style. Here's the Lalabarina set with the new icons. With icons that actually show you how the armor pieces look, getting rid of the second row to implement the 2-step process of picking the armor variant you want before or after you craft would result in a user experience that just isn't super smooth. You'd be looking at the single lines of armor and imagining what they look like on your character with the icons alone, skipping the preview process altogether and possibly missing out on variations. So in the end, it's better to keep the second row. At least it would look different. Anyway, I wanted to populate the entire screen with specific armor icons, but it was just a lot of f***ing work to make 10 of these, so forgive me, but I'll just simulate the rest and kindly ask you that you use your imagination. So this is the screen with Lollabarina and the simulated screen. I used the Lollabarina icons and I recolored them like the actual sets on the list. Obviously this would look much better with bespoke armor icons. Now you may be thinking, this designer noob just got rid of the set rarity colors. Yeah, just about the only thing those copy-pasted armor icons did that was useful. No problem, there are only a billion ways to show item rarity in RPGs. Here's a few. Changing icon border colors. Changing icon background colors. Using a gradient instead. Adding a corner decal. Coloring the actual names of the armor sets. And adding the rarity number to the set divider bar thing. Though those last two might not work on all screens. Lost connection to the server. Why can't I just start in offline mode, bro? Oh my god. To return to online mode, talk to your handler to access the communication functions in the change lobby menu. You see how complicated this fucking thing is? Here's an idea. You see this little online, offline indicator in the menus? Let me fucking click on it on PC. Not using a mouse? No problem. The game has 45 text links in these menus. Add a link that says go online or go offline. It's much better than talking to my damn handler, but let's take it one step further. Let me reconnect without leaving the stupid pop-up. God, like this UX just drives me crazy. This isn't rocket science. This is basic good UX practices. You know, if IGN needs to make a 7-minute video about just your heads-up display, you have a f***ing UI problem. What drives me crazy is the minimap on the bottom left. Because the minimap is a version of the map, basically, with all the damn icons. The icons are still there. The icons that you see on the map are on the minimap. All right? So I want to look at the minimap, and I want to know where north is. The issue is, the cardinal directions are the same fucking size as the other 57,000 icons that are in the minimap. And the minimap moves with you, with the camera. And so, north is actually that tiny little arrow on the minimap. The tiny little thing right there. And then there are two little dots showing you, you know, east and west. Nothing is showing south because south. But, you know, like I want at least a big N or a big arrow that shows me where north is so I can get my goddamn bearings. So here's another example of this game giving you a billion options and doing a horrific job of presenting those options to you. My philosophy when it comes to like designing these character creator screens is if you have few options, if you have, I don't know, 9 presets, then it is better for you to do something like this where you have left and right, and then you just go left and right, preset 1, 2, and you cycle through the presets because that hides the fact that your game doesn't have many presets. However, I will always prefer a character creator that gives you the preview in a little thumbnail of the items that you're looking at, the presets that you're looking at, the hairs that you're looking at. Especially when you have many options. And so when I started using this thing and I started going 1, 2, 3, oh my god, there are so many presets. Why isn't this shown in a grid with thumbnails? Until I clicked in the middle of this little black box. And when I did that, that is what happened. 40 something hairstyles, and I misclicked. This is an accident. I did not want to click the box.
How long could you go without knowing that?
Exactly. Look, this is a fantastic character creator, okay? But when you have a quality of life feature like a grid view, you have to tell players. Here's a really complicated way to do it. Ready? Drives me nuts, this UX. And yet the gameplay is as fun as it possibly could be. And so if you are not a Monster Hunter player, you've never played this stuff before, but you like RPGs and you really like good combat, and maybe you play Dragon's Dogma 2 and you like Dragon's Dogma 2, I would say give it a try, knowing full well that you might have to Google a thing or two because the UX is that bad. Really, really bad. But the gameplay, I think, makes up for it. It's worth it. It's worth the torture. It's worth the torture. It really is. Anyway, if you like this video, click this other video because YouTube thinks you're gonna love it and YouTube knows a lot about you. But as always, remember that fun is business, and if you drink, do not go monster hunting. You can hunt your own monsters.